All right, welcome back everyone for this fourth session of Water and Communications. Today we are going to time travel, so get ready for that. But before we get started for the session itself, I have the logistical details as usual. To be able to hear and understand each other properly, I encourage you to turn on the interpretation. At the bottom of your screen, you should see the little globe icon. It can also be under more, so make sure to look for that. And then you can choose your track, English, Spanish, or Arabic. My name is Cécile Pigeon-Hugh. Some of you know me already, some might be new. I'll be your host for the entire program. And I would like to thank the Grundfos Foundation for their support on this Water and Communications program. A quick announcement that the first recordings are finally on YouTube, so you will see recordings from week 1, and you have 1 recording per language. So you will have 3 recordings for session 1, 1 in English, Arabic, and Spanish. Same for session 2. And the recordings from previous sessions will follow next week, for today and Tuesday. I want to follow with a second announcement. For those who were with me on the first session, I mentioned that we would have a follow-up session in August. The details are now set, so save the date for the 14th of August. It will be a session where you will be creating the content. So we are inviting you as participants of the Water and Communications program to submit your story. And we will select 5 of you to present your project in a 5-minute presentation, 5-minute pitch, let's say. And then after that, you can go into breakout rooms where you will discuss these projects together. So the idea is not to hold the program just by myself and by the speakers, but really to make you owner of the program and building on the outcomes of or your learnings or your own story from water and communications. You will have this opportunity to share your story around 5 themes. All that will be recapped in an email with a link to submit your story, the description of what we are expecting or what we would like to see. And then the idea is really you would give a 5-minute presentation, and then after that you'll go in breakout rooms, and then you can share ideas, knowledge, wisdom, solutions to challenges, tips, something like that. So you will be put in breakout rooms, and then you can exchange. So we're hoping to enable peer-to-peer learning, collaboration, networking in that way. And that will be really the main of the session. And we will also talk about World Water Week, because this session will transition to World Water Week a little bit. So really save the date and look for an email coming from me in the coming days with all those details. And if you have questions, of course, feel free to email me. I think that's it for me. I'll stop sharing here. And I would like to introduce our speaker for today. We have Ruben with us. I'm just, sorry. My windows just jumped all around. Sorry about that. I want to make sure I have your name right. So Ruben Ritzén is a Swedish ethnologist, anthropologist, and freelance project manager specializing in speculative visions of sustainable climate futures. Ruben is part of the interdisciplinary arts and research collective Climagineries and runs his own consultancy company. And Ruben will lead us today in this full 1.5-hour workshop, or 2 hours workshop. So we are together until 4 p.m. my time. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed today's session. If you have any questions, message me in the chat. And Ruben, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Cécile, and hello everyone. I'm going to start by sharing my presentation, and we will take it from there. Let's see. Right. Hi, everyone. I'm so thrilled to be here. My name is Ruben Ritzén, and as Cecile said, I'm part of an arts and research collective called Climaginaries. And basically what Climaginaries does is we create visions of what the sustainable future might look like. Mostly, because we're based in Sweden, we mostly specialize on what Sweden might look like in 30 years' time, if we manage to achieve all the goals set up in the Paris Agreement and as part of Swedish climate law as well. We have a climate law that says that we have to reach the goal of a sustainable society. And we do this through various types of arts-based methods, where we combine cutting-edge climate research with various forms of artistic practice. So we've done travel guides, like a tourist guide to a fossil-free Sweden in the year 2050. We've done sort of place-based GPS-tracked radio theater about what the specific location might look like in a sustainable future, and so on. But we've also developed this workshop, and I'm going to briefly talk a bit about the background of why we developed this workshop, what we hope that you will get out of it, and what was our intention for sort of working with climate futures and sustainable futures, specifically in this manner. So just to give you a brief, a quick rundown of what's to come, I will start by speaking briefly, like 10 minutes, on the background of our methodology and the importance of imagining futures, why that's something that's important for us to do. And then we'll go into we'll time travel together, we'll go into the future, and we'll visit a fictional museum that tours the world, talking about how many countries worldwide have managed to achieve this sort of sustainable future. And then we'll go into a workshop where you will be able to write your own stories about what a sustainable future for the water management issues of your region, your country, your local area looks like. And a few of you, not all of you, unfortunately, because you're so many, which is fantastic, super happy that you're all here. But a few of you will be able to present, a few groups, that is. But I thought I'd start by giving a little background to this workshop, and as I said, why we think the arts-based futuring is important as a method. And for us at Climaginaries, everything started with a project that you see on the screen here called Carbon Ruins. And Carbon Ruins was an exhibition of the future, which was created by the Department of Political Science at Lund University in 2019. And when I say exhibition of the future, what I mean is that when you visited this museum, it's taken down now, unfortunately, but when you visited this physical exhibition, which was here in Lund, you entered the future, you time traveled to the future, where you went into a Sweden in the year 2053, when Sweden had become a fossil-free state, having achieved net zero emissions of greenhouse gases. And to celebrate this achievement, the Swedish government then, in this speculative future vision, opened this exhibition of Carbon Ruins as a way of looking back at the fossil era we left behind. So the museum collected a series of objects that were relevant or played a part in the transition from a fossil world, a petroculture, if you will, to a fossil-free, net zero, sustainable world. And then once the people who visited this museum got to time travel to the future, they got to place themselves in this future fossil-free, sustainable world and think about how they contributed to the green transition being completed on a personal or professional level. And we quickly realized that this method tended to create thought-provoking and very engaging discussions. And we also realized that this method of sort of projecting yourself into the future and looking back, a successful future, and looking back and think about, okay, so why did we achieve all these goals? what was that process like? That could be done in various different types of subjects and fields. So that's why we created this workshop. And the reason we think that this backcasting process, you could call it, time traveling to the future and looking back on what's happened, the reason we think it was so successful is a large part because of framing. Because when talking about large-scale systemic transformation, it can be quite fruitful to analyze why the change that we know now must happen hasn't taken place. So you could say that we are stuck in a certain way. I mean, we have all these facts that we know about the problems that exist in the water sphere. We know about the dangerous consequences of releasing microplastics into the oceans, for example. We've known that for a long time, but still we continue to release microplastics into the oceans. So facts are not enough. So the question then becomes, okay, so if we are stuck, in what ways are we stuck? And you could argue, is it technologically, economically, politically, culturally, mentally, perhaps? And we would argue, at Imaginaries, that at least in Sweden, I can't speak for all other countries, but at least in Sweden, in the general societal debate, when people talk about how society needs to change in order to create a more sustainable world for people, for planet, and so on, the general discussion tends to go circle around the top three spheres on the slide you see here: the technological sphere, the economical sphere, and the political sphere. But we would argue that the cultural and mental aspects of the transition to a sustainable world is equally important. And we would also argue that they are perhaps a large answer to the final question on this slide, which is, how do we get out? How do we transition out of this hole that we have dug for ourselves? And for many researchers, experts, teachers, activists, so on, the answer is through the communication of facts, right? And often when researchers and teachers and activists and so on, not all of them, but many, talk about what a sustainable like, or what an unsustainable future might look like, they tend to do it in the way that you can see to the right of the screen here, which is through charts, statistics, political documents, and so on. And I want to be very clear that I'm not trash talking this type of communication. It's extremely important, and it's taken us very far in many aspects of the green transition. But we do know that we need to act now if we are going to stop the spread of microplastics, for example, or create societies that can withstand flooding and so on. So we need to create engagement and political action right now. And for us, we think that means that we have to go beyond facts, not ignoring the facts, keeping the facts with us, but including something else as well: storytelling. So in the cultural sector, stories and fictional worlds and so on have long been used to pose questions, challenge norms, create debates, and so on. And many of these worlds and stories engage a great number of people. Just here in Sweden, you can think of like Harry Potter, for example. I think I have like 3 friends who independently of each other tattooed this Deathly Hallows famous Harry Potter logo on their bodies. So there's a great engagement with this type of storytelling, right? Think about everybody who visit these fictional worlds. I mentioned Harry Potter, but you can think about like Star Wars or Marvel or Minecraft, whatever. Think about everybody who takes part of storytelling daily, who visit these worlds, who dress up as their favorite characters, tattoo logos on their bodies, as I mentioned, and so on. And the question then becomes, what is it that makes these stories of other worlds so much more exciting to talk about than those to the right of your screen here? Because I would argue that a graph that shows what how flooding might increase in a certain area in the coming 30 years. That's also a fictional world. That's a world rife with storytelling and important choices and dramatic consequences and so on. But that graph doesn't engage people in the same way, though it should. It doesn't engage people in the same way as some form of fictional world might. And that's because working with storytelling is working with emotions. And that's what we think is missing. We need to work with emotional connection. And it's this idea of making issues of climate change or water scarcity or flooding and so on emotional and engaging, which is that is the reason behind what we at Climagineers do what we do. And it's also the reason why we have created this workshop, because that's what you will do in a little while. You will be able to time travel to the future and talk about the people, the places that were impacted by unsuccessful and perhaps then successful water management and how that happened. So it's a way of combining the power of cultural storytelling with scientific research and knowledge. So this explains why it's important to talk about social change and what the future holds in an emotionally engaging way. It's a way of creating the political action and the movement in society that we need. But why have we decided to talk about a positive future, a future where most of our problems have been solved? That's also something that's important to touch upon, I feel. Because often when people, at least in Sweden, discuss the future, they tend to do it in like binary opposites, either thinking of the future as a utopia, like a perfect world where all problems that we have been solved, often through various engineering-based technological solutions. Or they tend to talk about it as a dystopia, as a dark world where everything has gone wrong and life is generally quite miserable. And both of these ways of talking about the future are used to engage and activate people right in the present, to get them to act, to create change, either by giving them hope that change is possible, or by scaring them into trying to avoid what might come. However, talking about the future in this way, we feel at least, can be quite counterproductive when it comes to creating engagement, because instead of motivating people, it can become passivizing and stop people from acting. So either because the people, and when I say people, I mean like the general public, the people that we communicate to, either because they will think that everything will work itself out because we have these super smart researchers and engineers and politicians that will create these magical technological solutions that will solve everything for us, which then leads to this sensation of I can put my faith in them and I don't need to do anything on a personal level. Or that everything, if you talk about the dystopian future, that everything will be destroyed anyway. So why should I do anything? There's no reason for me to do anything because whatever I do, we will still fail. So it's just I might as well just like consume everything that I want to consume, or do whatever I feel like doing without regards to what the future might hold. So we think it's important to try and discuss, to find a sort of middle ground here, to discuss and be very humble in the face of all the problems that exist in the present, acknowledge them, as well as what they might lead to in the future, but also to shine a light on the opportunities for change that exist and how we can act on them to counteract the problems. So it's about encouraging actual action and shining a light on the space that we all have, either personally or professionally or otherwise, to work towards a more sustainable world. But also, crucially, on the need to actually do something and not just think it will work itself out. Because how we imagine the future affects the choices that we make today. the way in which we think and talk about the future affects the decisions we make in the present. So different choices, investments, political decisions, and so on become more or less desirable depending on what we imagine that the future might look like. However, it's also important to remember that even if we can know certain things about the future, for example, that if we keep releasing greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, water-related issues such as flooding and water scarcity and so on will become increasingly more common. We know this. That is a fact. But there are also an infinite number of things that we cannot know, because the future is inherently unknown. That's why it is the future. So the future, you could say, comes into being as we live and act in the present. So what happens in one place might have consequences in another location that we can't foresee. New tech might be developed that reimagines the horizon of possibility. Norms and behaviors change as new ideas take root, and so on. And up until now, I've been talking about the future as a singular noun. But it might actually be more correct to talk about futures, plural, since there is never just one possible future out there that we're sort of inevitably striving towards. There's an infinite amount of futures who all differ from each other, either in great ways or quite small ways. And even though the future is presented as closed and neutral, as something that just happens, that's really not the case. This also means, of course, that the future is a political project. The future is inherently political. Whoever controls how the future is discussed also to some extent controls what happens in the present. So if you think about, if you think that the future is a high-tech city powered by AI, for example, then that will lead to certain debates popping up in society, which will lead to certain economical decisions, judicial decisions, court decisions being taken, political decisions being taken. But if you, on the other hand, imagine a future which is different from that, if you imagine a future with a focus on degrowth, for example, reconnecting with nature, living in smaller communities, and so on, that will lead to other debates, other political decisions being taken in society. So therefore, the future is a democratic issue, and the future that we all will live in and future generations will live in is, of course, based on decisions that politicians, business leaders, and populations around the world take today. So the future is not created in the future, it's created here and now. And that's why it's important to talk and envision about the future. I'll just quickly end on a rather interesting concept by the UN body UNESCO. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this. It's called futures literacy. So futures literacy is a skill, much like reading and writing. And it was created by this researcher called Riel Miller, or he coined the term at least. And this skill of futures literacy revolves around training oneself to realize the sort of unreflected assumptions that dictate the ways in which we talk about and imagine the future. So the norms that dictate what our idea of what a negative future or a positive future might be. So it's a way of training this, training futures literacy is a way of training oneself to recognize and analyze and locate these assumptions in a general debate and when we communicate with people regarding future issues, as well as identifying, I should say, when narratives of the future are communicated as facts. That is, when we say that this is the only future that is possible. That's creating, turning a narrative into a fact. And this is a critical skill, we would argue, because it allows people to examine these narratives of the future that pop up in socio-political discourse. And that in turn allows people to better understand the paradigms, sort of the foundational social and political aspects out of which these ideas of the future stem. And if you can analyze and locate these things in the political debate, then you can also, on a conscious level, either reject, modify, or subscribe to them. And this promotes political agency and lets people take a more active part in shaping both the present and the future. But that's enough methodology, I feel. If you're more interested in this, please reach out. I'll post my email in the. I have it on the final slide here, and we can have a discussion about these things. But what you see before you now is my portable time machine. This is my temporal nexus, a portal which will bring you through a spatio-temporal cluster of timelines and into the future that we're going to visit. And this future is Sweden in the year 2053, and this exhibition of carbon ruins that I talked about before. However, for this to work, we need to do a small ritual together. Traveling through time is not something that you do just like that with a snap of the fingers. So if you're comfortable with it, you don't need to, but if you're comfortable with it, I would ask you to close your eyes and listen to the sound of my voice. You're invited to take 3 deep breaths, one at a time, when I tell you to. Take the first deep breath. Think about who you are today in the year 2025. Who are you? What does your life look like? Where do you live? What do you like to do? Think about that for a little while. Take the second deep breath. Think about who you are in the future, in the year 2053. Are you yourself? Maybe somebody else? A friend? A family member? A relative? Where do you live? What does your life look like? What do you spend your days doing? Think about that for a little while. Take the third deep breath. Think about what you did to become the one that you are today in the year 2053. How have you changed these past 30 odd years? How has society changed from 2025 to 2053? Take a final breath and open your eyes. Welcome to the year 2053 and to the exhibition of carbon ruins. So great to have you all here visiting us. I think we are all accounted for. Yeah, sometimes some people drop out in the year 2030 or so, and it's quite a hassle to get them back. But it seems like, at least on my screen, that everybody is here. That's great. So nice to have you all here with us. 10 years ago, in 2043, Sweden successfully completed the green transition and became a sustainable welfare state. Finally, joining the club of countries who had already reached this goal. And to celebrate this, we, in the Swedish government, we collaborated with the United Nations to create this exhibition, Carbon Ruins, which focuses on how society changed between the mid to late 2020s and now in 2053. As all of you know, a large part of transitioning to a sustainable state, sustainable country, involves managing water issues in many forms, from droughts and water scarcity to flooding and water pollution. We have had a great deal of interest in this exhibition, and as such, it will soon tour all over the world, visiting countries on all populated continents. But to do so, we of course then need objects and stories from other places than Sweden, because our issues are not common to every other country. These issues look different in every part of the world. So that's why we are so thankful that all of you are here with us and took the time to be here and to share your stories about what happened in your countries, in your regions, and in your parts of the world, and how you also successfully dealt with water-related issues these past 30 years, from 2025 to 2053. And to start with, just to give you a quick idea of the types of stories that we are including in the exhibition, I'm going to present a couple of objects to you from our Swedish part of the exhibition as inspiration. You don't need to follow these structures rigidly or anything like that, but just for information. And this first object, as you may have guessed from the title, artificial grass, this, though it looks like it, is not actually ordinary grass. And it's not just artificial grass, it's oil grass. It once had this space-age name of astroturf, very, very fossil world type name, and was mainly used for soccer and football pitches here in the Northern Hemisphere. And this artificial grass enabled players and the clubs to leave both mud and lawnmowers in the past, thereby extending the season. You didn't need to worry about cutting the grass and so on. However, time and various tackles and runs and scores and goals by the football players took their toll on this plastic, slowly shredding it into smaller and smaller pieces. And combined with the small rubber granules in this grass, well, you had an environmental disaster. The resulting particles, the plastics that were shaved off by each tackle, each foot on the grass, they were shaved off, and when rains came, they were jettisoned out into many places where they shouldn't be. Lakes and rivers, oceans. They ended up in local streams and in brains of fish. And it was actually not until certain municipalities, certain football clubs and players decided to attack this issue head on that any progress was made in terms of banning this material. There was this organization, I don't know if you were familiar with it, but at least in Sweden, they were quite big at the time. They were called Footballers for Future. And in the mid-2020s, they campaigned with the slogan, "Put the ref in the ocean, not the plastic." And we had a local football team in the southern part of Sweden called Helsingborg. Their football club collaborated with a company that developed regular natural grass seeds. And they sent this like pitch grade grass to all their competitors. And finally, the Swedish Football Association took a stance and asked for government support in their fight to remove the plastic fields. So they instituted a policy basically saying that on all their pitches in all of Sweden, no artificial grass was allowed, just natural grass. And these natural grass pitches were enriched with biochar, which sequestered carbon while also making the grass more durable. And today, of course, no player worth their salt would longer consider even playing on this type of artificial grass, and they no longer have to suffer from burns on their legs. Another object that's quite interesting and has been very engaging for a lot of people in our exhibition here is this concrete block. Many older residents of Malmö talk about Malmö is a the third largest city in Sweden, in the south part of Sweden. And many residents here talk about the floods on August 31st in 2014 as the moment when the city's inhabitants started to look upon water as both foe and friend. And the city experienced immense downpours, resulting in large-scale flooding. And everything was affected. Buses were stuck in newly formed urban lakes. Family photo albums perished when basements filled with water. And for decades, the city had built hard surfaces built on concrete and asphalt, roads, parking places, which stopped the water from reaching the soil beneath and increased the amount of flooding. And after these floods, much work has been done to adapt the city to a changing climates. So house owners now avoid using asphalt and concrete. Streets and squares are covered with trees and ponds, and rivers collect rainwater. And one of the more visible changes, actually, is the holes that have appeared in many of the city's concrete structures. And the core that you see here, the drill core that you see on the screen, was actually extracted from a piece of a square in Malmö in 2028. So by drilling these holes in the concrete and planting grass in there, these squares turn green. And the cores were then recycled and used in new buildings in the city to meet rules for circularity in construction. So this is one example of another object that was was a large part in managing the water issues that we had here in Sweden, to sort of create these channels that allow the rain to sink into the soil beneath, and not just run along the hard paved concrete and asphalt streets. But what kind of museum guide would I be if I didn't have a lesson to teach based on my story? So what you see here are aspects of how, if you look at how society generally tends to change on a large scale, you can identify that these 8 factors, aspects of society, you could call them, often have an important part to play. And they tend to not achieve change solely by themselves, but in collaboration with other aspects. So change-bringing factors, the ones that are listed here on the screen, are new markets, stories, organizing, policy, knowledge, innovation, activism, and norms and behaviors. And this is a quite fruitful way of thinking when you look back on how your societies, your countries, your local regions have changed, how they handled the water related issues that you faced back then in 2025. Looking at what aspects were important in achieving this change is a quite fruitful way of going about structuring such a story. So if we look at, for example, the story I told about the artificial grass, if we look at those change-bringing factors, what can we see there? Well, you can see that in that case, it was a combination of activism, Football is the Future, the organization, and organizing, Football is the Future, and this football team in Helsingborg, this grass seed company, collaborated, organized themselves. And that led to a policy change, the Swedish Football Association implementing a policy forbidding artificial grass on their fields, which then in turn created a change in norms and behaviors that football players don't want to play on artificial grass anymore. So this is just one example of one story and one pathway to change. But these change-bringing factors can be combined in all manner of different ways. You can think about changed norms and behaviors can open up new markets, which can drive innovation, or you can have stories that spread out through society, which lead to various actors organizing themselves, activist groups being formed, and so on. New knowledge can come to light, which can underpin policy decisions, which in turn can encourage behavioral change, and so on. So change never happens in a vacuum, but movements in one place always have an impact on several others. And of course, as I mentioned, what I said now are just general examples. These can be combined in all manner of different ways. And with that, you will soon be able to join these different breakout rooms and form yourselves based on region or country or local place, and to talk about the water issues facing you there. That will be the majority of the rest of the session now. But we'll take a 10-ish minute break. So you can refill your water glass or and so on. I will meet back here at 10 to 3. So 14:50 my time. But 10 minutes break.
Thank you, Ruben. And while we're taking a break, I'm going to open the rooms because you will have to assign yourselves. We have over 150 participants, live participants today, and we have 22 rooms where you can choose yourself depending on the regions. Some of them are more or less precise because that's based on who participated before. So we want to keep the group relatively small, but you are welcome to join the room you like. Please stay with us for now. I'm just opening the room to make sure you all see them. But stay with us for Ruben to share the instructions. And then I will also share the instructions in the chat. But let's take a break for now. As Ruben said, fill your water glass or coffee or whatever you're drinking. Because we will need to talk and to interact with each other in this 40-minute exercise. So take the time to recenter yourself. For those who came late, hopefully you can count on your roommates to explain the exercise and the methodology. We are already in the future now. You didn't know that, but we are. So hopefully you can get the methodology with your roommates. We're aiming to have 5 to 10 or like around 5 people per group. If it's too many or too little in your room, feel free to come back and go to another room. Yeah, so we define different regions. Feel free to pick the one that either you belong to or you are interested in. Yeah, and then we'll get continued in a few minutes. But first of all, little break. And if you don't see the rooms, you might need to look for the icon at the bottom of your screen for breakout rooms. And then you see the list of rooms, and you should have a button with join. Yeah. So we'll come back in a few minutes after a quick break. And I'll just play some music for the break. Ruben, you tell me. Oops. You tell me when to stop.
Yes. All right. I think Cecile is out in some of the breakout rooms, posting the instruction there. But for those of you who are still here in the main room, this is the assignment that you will have the opportunity to work with in your various chosen breakout rooms. So what I want you to do is to start by identifying something that was unsustainable from a water perspective back in 2025, specific to your region or your country. And it can be from any sector, it can be from any part of society. And think about, why was this not sustainable back in 2025? So 30-ish years ago, in that society in which we lived in back then, why was this aspect of water management not sustainable? Why did it exist in the first place? And because we're a museum, we need to have some to present to the public. We can't just have a story, though the story, of course, is the thing that makes it interesting. But we need some form of object that we can put in our museum. So think about that as well. And then I want you to write the story around this object. So what does it look like today in 2053? Has this thing or this aspect of society or water management disappeared? Has it been replaced by something else? And so on. And how did this change occur? And then you can take inspiration from these change-bringing factors that I presented just before the break. And you have a QR code that links here to those various change-bringing factors as well, with examples from our original Swedish museum. And so then think about what were the crucial events behind this change. Was there a specific person, organization, a company, a story, a demonstration, a law, a trend, and so on, which was central to the change? And why was that the case? And also think about resistances. So was there any resistance against this change? What did that look like? How was that resistance overcome or managed? And so on. And feel free to name any important places, years, events, organizations, people, and so on. But I will leave this slide up here in the main room. And I think Cecile will post it in the chat soon as well.
So for those who have access to the Google Drive, the instructions are there. I'm going to paste the link again and paste the instructions themselves as well. So in the chat, you have access to the Google Drive there, where you have instructions in Spanish, Arabic, and English. And I'm going to paste the instructions in English on the chat. Just bear with me as I find them. Hi, welcome back, everyone.
Welcome.
We hope we had a good discussion in your groups. Just a quick reminder, re-enable interpretation if you need. And then I'll pass it back to you, Ruben.
Thank you. Yeah, I can see that more people are dropping back now from the breakout rooms. Hope you had a good discussion. Unfortunately, I didn't have the possibility to jump into and listen to your discussions, but Cecile told me that all the places she listed had really interesting and quite discussions, and also discussed quite different things, which is very interesting. I'm just waiting for. I think now everybody is dropping back in, it seems, so we have everyone accounted for before we move on. Seems like everybody is back now. Yeah, I'm very excited to hear what you all have envisioned and what you have to donate to us here at the museum. Unfortunately, since you are so many and there are so many groups, all of you can't present. But I'm told that there's a Google Drive in which you will be able to put any notes or illustrations or general ideas of what you discussed in, so that other groups can take part of your discussions. And I really encourage you to do that. I think Cecile has that link. I have randomly generated 5 groups which will get the opportunity to present. You will not have an immense amount of time, like 5 minutes per presentation. So if you would be able to try and stick to that time frame, so everybody gets an equal chance to discuss what they talked about, that would be fantastic. The first group on my list is the Central Americas and the Caribbean region group. Do we have anybody from, or a couple of people perhaps from that group who want to share what you discussed, what has changed in your region?
Well, yes, if I may, I'm Marco Sotelo. I'm sorry, can I speak in Spanish? Would that be fine?
See, yeah, I speak some Spanish. I won't try to answer you in Spanish because I'm not that good, but...
Ruben, you can also go into the English channel.
Yeah.
So, Marco, absolutely. Speak Espanol if you need, and then we go in the English channel, you will hear the translation.
Wonderful. So I had the opportunity of talking within the group with Helen, Eloisa, Janira, and Orlando, our colleagues from different places in Central America. and we were discussing about water management issues that we have in the region, and we use excessive amount of water in mining, in agriculture. We do not take care of underwater and electrical projects, as well as urban growth and demographic growth, which has happened in many different cities. And we also spoke a little bit about using water in AI tools. Also about gathering water in the cities. There's a calendar for water distribution in the big cities, and there we could see some issues that are really non-sustainable for a future in Latin America region. We could see different solutions and how to face these issues. So the first thing was to have different ideas to give a new value to the water resource in all of the region. And for that, we required the cooperation from the government, as from the society and the society themselves and companies, private companies, because the people by themselves individually cannot reach their objectives. This is also a change of attitude, of considering how water is an element that gathers all of humankind, and it's an element for all of us, and using up to the last drop of water by seeing water as a circular economy resource that can be used several times. And for that, we need to change the way of thinking by using and reusing treated water as well, not allowing it to go to waste. We were speaking about the issues with concepts and words during expression, because if you say treated water, people will already put up a barrier. They will not want to use it. For instance, in Mexico, we are using the word regenerated water. It is the exact same thing, but the impact that this has on the society. When you say, I'm consuming regenerated water, does not give out the same idea than reused water, which is, well, just a simple change in the words. It's just a narrative that will change the way people receive this water in a different manner. So these are different aspects and proposals for our museum. We had like a memorial, a commemorative plaque where we had a map of the region and a calendar to show the different water rationing we have in many of our countries, and allowing people to become more conscious of how we can overcome that issue for 2053.
Great. Thank you so much, Marco. That sounded super interesting. And I like this idea of the map in the museum, a very sort of tactile object that people can interact with. And a great point also about the usage of words, which is something that's definitely changed now in the past 30 years or so, the way in which we speak about water and the sort of concepts associated with that. So thank you so much to you and everybody in your group. Next up, I have the group simply called Western Europe. If anybody of you would like to share what you discussed.
Oh, we were hoping not to have to present, I guess.
Sorry.
We were just discussing, it's so many groups, we won't have to present.
Yeah, I can't trust the random generators, unfortunately, on that.
Yeah, but we had not, I think, a similar idea about, for example, what to do with bottled water, maybe how to use different type of water. like generated from wastewater, and then exhibit it in the museum, like the 2 different bottles, and show both are fine to drink, etc. So we were not so smart to think about a campaign about what to do, how to rename it or rebrand the water. But we really definitely thought about into the same, more into what to put in the museum than like what to showcase, what we had today and what will be showcased in the future, like a different item. But actually we had a wide range of topics we talked about. We talked about the data centers that need a lot of water. We talked about agricultural products imported from somewhere into our region, just meaning a loss of water or a waste of water in the country of origin. And then we talked a lot about that these kind of things can be solved with a lot of cooperation. And we actually talked a lot about a cooperation, then how different elements of our worlds work together. For example, one of our group members mentioned that the data science centers, they generate a lot of heat and a lot of energy, and to not let this energy vanish into the sphere, we can use it to produce the tomatoes in Western Europe in wintertime. And so we don't have to import the tomatoes from a desert area where, so this was an example that we did. Group, please help. What else did we talk about? I'm getting nervous. I forget everything here.
Sounds about Ulrich. I think we also have discussed other unsustainable practices that we are putting out in 2025, for example, from many different industry sectors, such as semiconductor manufacturing, that they use huge amount of water in manufacturing of the microchips or processing of wafer, and also we mentioned existing in chemical such as well, right? And but we also discussed potential solutions, best practice that we have identified from some companies or sectors, for example, through the improvement of water circularity, such as via water recycling or water reuse, through the wastewater treatment that we can make water, for example, fit for purpose, and then we can use the water for doing other things. And for example, we also had discussed about the rainwater harvesting in some water.
Jane, I'm very sorry to cut you off, but your sound is breaking up a bit, and it's a bit hard for the interpreters to follow. So if you can come closer to the mic, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Maybe other team members to help. Maybe it's better. Sorry, my connection is not so stable today.
But thank you so much, both Ulrika and Jane. I think we should move on to another group, but it sounds really interesting what you mentioned, and specifically about how we now in 2053 work a lot more with circularity in water compared to the sort of use and abuse way in which we treated water with back in the 2020s, at least in Western Europe. Also, great idea with this setting up the 2 different bottles of water to really give a visual perspective of this. So thank you so much for that and for sharing that with us. Very interesting. The next group I have is the West Asia, Middle East, Gulf countries. If anybody there would like to talk about.
I'm so glad we got picked, because I think we came up with some pretty interesting ideas. However, it's very easy to get off topic because it becomes so interesting. So I'm just on behalf of my group and anybody else from the group that wants to chime in quickly, but I'll cover everything hopefully that we've discussed. So here in the Middle East, we do rely on unconventional ways for our potable water, which would be desalinating our ocean water to get potable water. But we also do use groundwater, but also that's not sustainable the way that we're using it as well. So we kind of thought that we were driven to this point of having, you know, these big clunky pieces of equipment doing all the desalinating and reverse osmosis, all the brine that's discharged back into the marine environment, the carbon emissions from some of these activities, the marine impact from this process, as well as anything that we're taking from groundwater. Then we get saltwater intrusion, so then the water isn't even valuable, and we can't even replenish it with any water that we might get from any rain events because there's nowhere for it to go. So then we have flooding, and then we have runoff. So the bottom line is what we're doing now isn't sustainable because there's so many different vulnerabilities and risks to what we're doing now and how we are obtaining our water resources. So this has pushed us to sort of drive to look at a community level what can be done, and looking into a domestic household level of people sort of now being pushed to have their own systems at home, which would be sort of like a water generator unit that we were talking about, that would have your solar panel, but that would also have your atmospheric water collection. So you collect your own atmospheric water at a household level, and you can also have your own gray water recycling unit for all your indoor non-potable needs. So that our vision is by 2053, every community and every household will be equipped with this to take strain off of these big monstrosities, we were calling them, these big plants on the coast. We don't think that they'll completely phase out. I think they'll still have a place to exist. However, reducing some of that strain for it, and having community levels take more ownership and responsibility, as well as being more aware of water quality. Because in our group, we were saying that not a lot of people know what water quality, when it's bad or when it's good. So how do we enable at a community level for people to understand what water quality is healthy, what water quality they should be having for different needs? So that would need to have a lot of training from a community engagement level as well, to make sure that people are aware of that for their health reasons, but being a little bit more empowered to have their own units at home, being more in control of that. So in our museum, we wanted to have a big old pipe that goes into the ocean that they used to have to collect all the water, and then also a jar of brine waste that's part of the discharge. So if you're a kid in 2053, you would wonder, why were you guys putting this huge pipe straw looking thing into the ocean and just sucking out the water? Why were you guys just putting a big straw into the groundwater and just sucking it dry? So we were trying to think of like a visual that would really make people think, I can't believe you guys were doing that. And now it's evolved into some sleek one unit that sort of does everything at a household level, that has little impact, little emissions, and it's not impacting other environmental aspects as much. That was that. I hope I covered it all, team. Thank you.
Super. Thank you so much, Alicia. And I love this idea of presenting this pipe in the museum. I think it's going to be a fantastic showstopper. Like all museums love big, great exhibitions pieces, right? So thank you, and also a very, very good and interesting discussion on this sort of democratization of water as well, that you mentioned, putting it more into like a household level, part of like a pedagogical effort, but also sort of getting people closer to their own water sources, which is of course very, very important. So thank you so much for that. Thank you to the rest of your group as well. Next group is the India group. Does anybody want to summarize what you talked about?
Hi, this is Preeti from Bombay in India. Thank you for this opportunity. So I have put the thoughts in the chat as well. We had a very interesting conversation. Everyone really contributed, and it was very nice to hear that. One of the suggestions which I just came up with is that a fertilizer, somebody said that a thing they would see in a museum is pesticides and fertilizers. So now I'm thinking, I just improvised on that suggestion and said, why don't we make a fertilizer production plant as the museum, you know? Then the objects that could be in the museum would be concrete roads, dams and reservoirs, sugarcane and other water intensive crops. Somebody said water extraction equipment. I thought that was fantastic. Plastic bottles, of course. Then we thought of fancy showers and bathing, routines, which really waste a lot of water, and bathtubs and drilling equipment. I hope I haven't missed. Please, team, Ritu and everybody who was so active, Sandhya, Kunal, please chip in with thoughts that I may have missed out. We have one of the things that came up was that the voices of people, the narratives of the actual people who are impacted by water availability or water unavailability, that has to come out. Their narratives have to come out. It's always about people and voice and communities. I'm going to pause here and maybe one of my team members can come in. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think one of the things, one of the questions was about, where are the questions? You know, how did we get there, right? What was the process of, what are the crucial events? So one thing that we all discussed was that, maybe the water crisis really reaches such a level that when people start demanding their rights, they come up on the streets and there is protest, and there needs to be a platform for the voices to be heard, and only then really change can happen. So unfortunately there is no space for silent voices. They have to be active voices demanding their rights, and only then the change can happen. So it's a little dramatic, but maybe because I'm a filmmaker, I kind of think of drama and stories and emotions. So yeah, again, a request to the team, if you want to add something I may have missed. I'm sure there were many more beautiful suggestions and I'm just missing them. I feel sorry about that.
Thank you. I think you presented a really visual and dramatic, as you said, vision for this museum, which was I love the idea of having like the museum being like a large old school water plant that you can just walk into, and all these objects that you discussed as well. Speaking of drama and like engaging people, I think that's a really fantastic way to go about it. Of course, very important point about raising individual voices and people who are affected by water issues throughout history, back in the 2020s and up until now in 2053. So thank you so much for that. We have to move on to the final group, but thank you, Preeti, and the rest of the India group. The last group that I have listed here is the Nile group from the Africa groups. If we have anybody there who want to present.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Ruben. So yeah, we had very good discussion in our group. So we looked at agricultural water use as an issue, what was not sustainable. So there is some advancement in terms of irrigation technologies, but right now what's broadly being used is furrow irrigation. So in this process, we lose lots of water. So that's the thing that we suggested to change. So yeah, why does it exist? That's because that's the simplest and traditional method of agriculture, so it doesn't demand lots of infrastructure development. Yeah, in terms of the object which could represent it in the museum, we suggested a picture of dry land. So yeah, being in the 2050, so the advancement will be having precision irrigation technologies in place, which could save lots of water, and then having plenty of water, for nature and conservation and biodiversity as well. So how did the change occur? So that's because of the pressure, erratic rainfall, high population growth, and also competing demand for water, for hydroelectric purpose, and also others. Yeah, also drought happening here and there. So that is the pressure which forced the change. Yeah, I think that's basically what we discussed. If my team members want to add anything, I will leave the time for them thinking.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry to jump in, but we'll have to wrap up because I do want to stay on time and yeah, be careful of everyone's time. So Ruben, if you want to wrap us up, thanks a lot, everyone, for sharing.
Yes, thank you, definitely everyone, and thank you, Isaias and the rest of the Nile group as well. Really interesting points, and also a good visual perspective to have that picture as the museum object. I think I don't have anything else to add. I just want to send you back in time to 2025, because we can't leave you here in the future. Unfortunately, we have a lot of issues back in 2025 that need to be dealt with as well. So if you have the opportunity to sit back comfortably in your chair and close your eyes again, I will send you back through my second time portal. Think back to the year 2025. Land in the feeling of being in that body, being that person, at that point in time, with all those challenges facing you, but also all those opportunities for change. Take a deep breath and open your eyes. Thank you so much. Thank you for participating.
And thank you, Ruben, for leading us through such a great activity and with such a big group. Like we discussed the challenges before, but I feel like everyone really played along, and really grateful for everyone who shared, and those who haven't shared live. Please do add your notes or drawings or whatever in the Google Drive. We would love to read your stories. I really want to, thank you all for participating so actively today. Thank you, Ruben, for leading us. You have the contact here, and it will be shared in the session summary as usual. Thank you to the Grundfos Foundation for making this program possible. Next week, on Tuesday, we'll have a session with the Makasa Looking Horse from Canada with people from her community. And then on Thursday, we have another workshop with Data Fight about investigative journalism and how to bridge data and storytelling. So, and don't forget, I will send you my email with details about August 14th session, where you will get to share more of your stories, and we really look forward to hearing about those. And then at the end of this session, you'll have the survey, so feel free to let us know what worked, what didn't work, and you can always contact me via email. So we're on the clock. Thanks a lot, everyone. I wish you a very, very good rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.